Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Manash. On today's show, we're talking about the insane delays that can creep into a project for absolutely no good reason. Today, we're going to be sharing a collection of short stories that have one thing in common. They should have never happened. We're starting with the mundane story of a custom furniture company that took an order for a custom-made sofa. The lead time for the sofa is a full 10 weeks, and let me tell you, those 10 weeks are going to pose a commercial problem for the business that's waiting for the furniture to arrive. The process of fabric selection took a week of back and forth negotiation between the sales team and the final placement of the order. And now that we're away from the country for 2 weeks, we get a message a week after placing the order that the fabric is not available, and would we like to select a different fabric? So now, instead of waiting 10 weeks for the sofa to arrive, we're faced with the choice of finding another sofa with a shorter lead time or waiting a total of 13 weeks for a new custom-made sofa to be delivered with an as yet unknown unselected fabric. The company had no business accepting the order for materials that they couldn't deliver. Here's story number 2. This is the story of a government Department of Health that is really 2 departments in one. Submitting an application to the said Department of Health, as it turns out, doesn't mean the building application will get routed to both places within the department. Of course, there's no publicly available documentation saying you must submit the application twice to the same department in order to get it routed to both subsections of the department. And after getting approval from the Department of Health, the city's building examiner noted that the Food Safety Division of the Department of Health had not signed off on the application. This was despite the fact the department had the application for nearly 6 weeks. The Food Safety Division promised to give it a speedy review of the application. Ultimately, this meant the month of delay. When that was complete, it went to the city's food safety review, who then required the addition of a 500-gallon grease trap for each 3-gallon kitchen sink. It made no logical sense whatsoever. So a series of discussions ensued around how to interpret the building code in this instance. And after nearly 3 weeks of back and forth discussion with the city's building examiner, a solution was agreed upon. Here we are, almost 7 weeks for something that should have never happened. Here's story number 3. This is the story of the internet service provider who couldn't provision fiber to a property because the property address wasn't listed in the 911 database for the city's public safety records. It turns out the city is willing to collect taxes for that address, the road to the address is paved, and the mailman is delivering mail to that address. But the internet service provider could not recognize that that address existed. The location even shows up in Google Maps. The solution in this case was to bring the internet service to a friendly neighbor whose address actually did appear in the 911 database, and then we introduced a private extension of the internet service to go the last few yards to the subject property. The problem with this temporary approach, of course, is that we experience months of delays in provisioning of the service, and we still won't get emergency services coming to the proper location if someone were to call 911 from a fixed device on that network. Number 4. This is the story of a client who chose the paint color for an office. The painter ordered the paint and proceeded to get to work. Total elapsed time for the job was forecast to be 3 days, 1 primer coat and 2 finish coats of paint. At first, the client was happy with the paint color. They chose it after all. By the time the second coat of paint was expertly rolled and dried on the walls, the client admitted that perhaps it wasn't the best choice. They would go back and order new paint, but now the painters wouldn't be available for at least another week. It took 3 days to choose another paint color, and then another week to repaint the entire office. So what do all these stories mean? These are real-life stories from our own business. Does it mean that we're bad managers? Does it mean that somebody wasn't doing their job? The fact is, it means none of these things. These are real-life risks that happen in any business. You can't foresee the unknown, apart from allocating a time buffer at the end of each project. The buffer is not for anything specific. It's there just because. It's there to deal with unknowns that will arise with alarming regularity in real life. You likewise need a financial buffer to deal with these unknowns as well. Delays cost money, and sometimes a material substitution at higher cost can save time. As you think about that, learn to expect the unexpected. Have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.